Business Unity South Africa, in partnership with the Transnational Alliance to Combat Illicit Trade, has launched the TRACIT South Africa Illicit Economy 2.0 report. Now, the report provides a strategic assessment of the scale and impact of illicit trade in South Africa, examining vulnerabilities across sectors and outlining key recommendations for coordinated action. Now, Dr. Esteban Giudici, Senior Policy Advisor at Transnational Alliance to Combat Illicit Trade, joins us on the line to share some insights. Dr. Giudici, a very good evening and good to have you with us on the show.
Thank you. Good evening to you and to your audience.
Fantastic. So let us start then, maybe with because this is the second report, the first TRACIT report on illicit trade in South Africa. That was released in 2023, as you indicated during the presentation this morning. And this latest edition builds on that foundation. We know that illicit trade undermines economic growth. Dr. Giudici, what are the key developments then, or new insights that stand out in this second report?
Okay, this is very interesting because when we released our first report in 2023, it was at the same time that South Africa was grade listed by the Financial Action Task Force, and we saw that there were many overlapping concepts that we put in our report and in the grade listing. Namely, that there was a problem with effectiveness and some regulatory frameworks in the way that we fight organized criminality in South Africa. The audience may want to know that the Financial Action Task Force focuses on money laundering and financing of terrorism, whereas TRACIT, we focus on illicit trade. And illicit trade is an holistic phenomenon that has many implications in the forms of criminality that I just mentioned that are under the scope of the Financial Action Task Force. And this was what we showcased 2 years ago. Now, what happened during these 2 years in South Africa? We have seen that there was an improvement. Part of that improvement is the capability and the willingness of the, let's say, industry community to keep on working on this. And that's why BUSA had us today here at Johannesburg to present this new study. And this new study built on that momentum and another report that we produce, a tool, which is an index that assesses the capabilities of a country to fight illicit trade. And South Africa, it's scoring good in the region. What I'm trying to say here is that we see that there was a willingness also from the industry, from the government to solve these problems. And that's why South Africa is today on the verge of getting out of this grade listing from the FATF, from the Financial Action Task Force. And on the top of that, what we did today during the meeting was proposing two specific actions that the private sector, an association like TRACIT, can bring to the table. This is convening a regional event of customs directors, similar things we have done in Latin America and in North America, and they gave us great results in terms of collaboration. And we are trying to use the BRICS and different ways to bring this momentum to South Africa and also to implement a new platform where all the relevant stakeholders to fight illicit trade and ultimately criminality need to be connected. And that's what we are trying to do here. And we see that there is an open door and we are looking forward to keep on collaborating. So this is a summary of the things that have happened over the past 2 years. And I believe that the prospects are good.
Mm. And on your point there, the suggestion then of a partnership between government and business, that to be used then to combat illicit trade in South Africa. Maybe talk to us about how important then are public-private partnerships in tackling illicit trade, and what role should big business play in supporting enforcement and consumer protection?
Well, I think that this is more important than ever. You might have heard lots of things about public-private cooperation, but we are getting to a point where this is becoming too evident that this needs to happen. And why I'm saying this? Because criminal organizations and people who are out of the law, gray economy, they leverage a lot on technology. Let's say, for instance, e-commerce, the use of small parcels, the use of different platforms to communicate. And law enforcement is not doing it in the way that it could be done. And this is not the critics. I mean, it's normal that this happens because public sector has different dynamics because they have many check and balances and things that need to be fulfilled. But that is why the industry, the brands, they need to come to play to provide this know-how and this technology and to make it happen right now. And I think that we have two components that they are key here to make this happen. There is finally a political momentum. All the stakeholders that were at the meeting today and with whom we are constantly discussing are aligned and want this to happen. And the second component is that we have the technology. As TRACIT, we can facilitate this. We are working with this. We have technical teams and we are ready to get on board. And this is going to be key to at least catch up a little bit with all the terrain we have lost over the past years.
Now, Dr. Giudici, then, as you referenced then, the use of technology such as parcel tracking and AI detection for counterfeit products, how feasible then is it to implement these tools in developing economies like ours?
It's very feasible because these new technologies, I mean, it takes a cost to produce them, to elaborate them, and to maintain them, but it's minimum in comparison to the tax collection that we are going to have if these are implemented. There are many different tools. I mean, we could be talking for hours about this, but no matter which country it is, we only need the political will. And I believe that we are having this momentum here in South Africa. I'm very positive about the meetings that we are having this week. And hopefully we are going to be able to report back on this soon.
All right. And then just in closing then, maybe if we touch a bit on tariffs. I know tariffs have entered the fray now potentially, but what potential impact do you foresee them having on the sort of scale and nature of these illegal activities?
Okay, this is a very good question. We don't have any study on that because this is too recent, but what I can tell you out of our experience are our fact-finding reports. Whenever there is a new array of regulations that make it more difficult for consumers to get access to legitimate products, this serves as fertile ground for the proliferation of illicit trade. You may want to see our reports about the pandemic, the lockdowns and restriction laws. This happened in South Africa. I'm sure that you're familiarized that during the pandemic, 4 or 5 years ago, there were some restriction laws on tobacco and alcohol. And today we are still suffering that. We have illicit market of alcohol around 80% and 60% on tobacco. And probably all these new tariffs, they might or might not have a similar impact. This is what I can tell you. Of course, time will tell, but I think it's important to be prepared to have affordable consumer products for the consumers.
All right, Dr. Giudici, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for taking us through that conversation. Really appreciate your time this evening.
Likewise.
All right, that was Dr. Esteban Giudici, Senior Policy Advisor at TRACIT, taking us through that conversation there, their latest report coming out today and giving us an assessment then of the impact of illicit trade and how much it really does undermine South Africa's economy. We know that it's estimated that we lose about 100 billion rand annually to illicit trade. Yeah, a major number there.